Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a really fascinating piece of source material you shared. It's titled Chapter 50. And it takes quite a critical look, I think, at how we measure success and, well, contentment in modern life.
It certainly does. It makes you question some pretty fundamental assumptions we all make.
Hmm.
So our mission for this deep dive is really to unpack the main arguments it's presenting.
Right.
Specifically, how these powerful external societal pressures shape what we even aspire to, and maybe what the source suggests about finding genuine fulfillment that isn't just tied to those external things.
Yeah, and we're going to explore some ideas that honestly might feel a bit challenging, maybe even a bit uncomfortable, because they really do push back against the usual narrative.
Mm-hmm.
We'll look at why constantly chasing these external goods, things we think we should want, might actually be a kind of trap.
Yeah.
And how something called the Diderot effect, which we'll explain, helps clarify that feeling of, never quite having enough.
It's a great illustration.
And even how some really core societal definitions we live by, things like what it means to be a good person or what education really is, might actually be leading us down a path that, well, the source argues doesn't truly serve us in the end.
Exactly. It's all about trying to get past that surface level, isn't it?
Yeah.
So let's dive in and see what crucial insights we can pull from this material. Insights that might help you navigate all the noise and get right to what feels most important for your own life.
Okay, let's start unpacking this. The source kicks off with a pretty provocative idea, I'd say.
Definitely.
It suggests that people often let what it calls accountants map the blueprints of their lives, meaning they let these external metrics, the kind of accountant would track, right?
Yeah.
Where you can live based on income, the opportunities supposedly available, how secure your future funding looks. They let that stuff dictate their whole path.
So it's like charting a course based on perceived survival needs, or maybe things that, as the source puts it, have been pressed on us to seem enjoyable.
Right. And often sidelining those, deeper desires or beliefs, the things that really spark a visceral reaction inside us.
And what's fascinating is how the source connects this directly to self-worth.
Yeah.
It points out that as a society, we tend to gauge our quality of life less by what we genuinely do or even like the effort we put in.
Yeah.
And far more by how we appear because of that doing and, crucially, what we earn.
Yeah.
It becomes this measurement heavily based on external perception and financial outcome.
Right, the appearance of success. And the source isn't just blaming individuals, is it? It talks about this pervasive present-day monoculture. It calls it a governing pattern, even a master narrative.
I get underlying script.
Exactly. And this script basically suggests that if wealth or attractiveness or possessions aren't bringing you happiness, well, the problem isn't the pursuit itself. The problem must be that you just don't have enough of them yet.
Keep chasing.
Yeah.
And this is where the source really delivers its core argument. It states it explicitly, and it even cites, an endless proverbial pile of research to back this up.
Yeah.
That acquiring more external stuff, whether that's another zero at the end of the balance on your bank statement, or, new possessions that really just represent your perceived worth, it fundamentally only changes your surroundings.
Just the scenery.
Just the scenery. It does not, the source insists, change your internal capacity to deeply or sincerely appreciate them, feel them, enjoy them, want them, be happy because of them. It states it really clearly. External acquisition does not yield internal contentment. Full stop.
Wow. It really cuts against the grain of so much of what we're shown and told, like every single day.
It really does.
And yet, as the source points out, we trek on, right? We find ourselves feeling maybe enslaved to these external things that we're taught are the ultimate goods.
Mm-hmm.
And we justify this enslavement, it argues, with what it calls flawed and influenced logic. We cling to this hope that something external, a new job, a bigger house, looking different, can somehow fundamentally change our internal state, our awareness, our ability to appreciate things, our ability to truly live or feel.
And the warning it gives is pretty stark.
Mm-hmm.
Once we're convinced that these external markers, money, sure, but also these abstract concepts like morality or education or just general material wealth are the keys to being content.
Yeah.
The source suggests we risk becoming like rats on a spinning wheel for the rest of our lives, just running and running.
That image, the spinning wheel, it's really powerful. And speaking of that endless chase, the source brings up a concept that perfectly captures this cycle. The Diderot effect.
Ah, yes.
It uses this anecdote about the enlightened philosopher Denis Diderot. Apparently, the story goes, he lived a fairly simple, contented life until a friend gifted him this magnificent scarlet dressing gown.
Right, and this is where it gets really telling. That single beautiful item, it sort of set a new higher standard, didn't it?
Exactly.
So as Diderot wore this luxurious gown,
Yeah.
suddenly his simple furniture, his modest stuff, it all started to feel kind of shabby, out of place.
Didn't match the gown.
Didn't match the gown. So he starts buying new things, chairs, rugs, mirrors, trying to make everything match the elegance of this one gift. And this ends up leading him into debt. The source says he ended up essentially toiling his life away, just trying to keep pace with this escalating standard of living that all started with one single gift.
Wow. You can immediately see the parallel to today, can't you?
Oh, absolutely.
The source notes how this constant bombardment, advertising, social media feeds, packed with these curated success stories, always tied to luxury and materialism.
Mm-hmm.
It says we're consistently dipping our toes and dousing our senses in it. And that makes it almost impossible, it argues, to take a step back and see the system objectively. Most people just don't.
They don't. And the source makes a really provocative assertion here. It says, perhaps there is no God so worshipped and adored as a dollar bill.
Oof.
And maybe never so much faith placed in systems that are specifically designed, it argues, to maintain power and ego. It describes these systems as insidiously effective governors.
Insidious because...
Yeah, because their control isn't obvious. It's not overt. Instead, they subtly program our perceived need to keep running on that wheel, staring at what it calls an illusory screen, believing we're striving towards our own goal.
Yeah.
Well, what we often can't see, the source implies, is that the wheel you are running on endlessly powers their monopoly. Our effort fuels their system.
Wow. That's a challenging thought. And it brings us right back to this list, this collectively accepted list of goods we're sort of predisposed to believe in, aren't we?
Mm-hmm. The checklist.
Yeah, the checklist. Be educated, be a good person, have money, be attractive, work out, have a great job, buy a house,
Yeah.
And onward.
The list goes on.
And these things, the source points out, they're presented in ways that appeal to our senses, maybe our base instincts, definitely our egoic selves.
Which then raises the source's absolute core question, the one we really need to sit with. How often do we personally, truly stop and question the fundamental definition of good that's been handed to us, that's been imposed? How much genuine faith do we actually have in a system that seems designed, according to this source, to convince us that our natural state or simple lives or just our inner joys are somehow inherently not good enough?
And the source, it doesn't shy away from using some really challenging examples to hammer this point home, especially about questioning these imposed definitions.
No, it doesn't.
Like, take the idea of being a good person. The source offers this incredibly intense illustration. It states that those who commit suicide terrorism believe they are being good people, martyrs for their God.
Right. And it's crucial to understand why the source uses such an extreme, difficult example. It's not trying to justify or even understand that act itself.
No, of course not.
No. It's using it to force us, the reader, to look inward and ask why we personally make choices trying to be a good person. What definition are we operating under?
Right.
Is that definition truly our own, something we've deeply considered and believe? Or is it something we've just absorbed from the culture around us, as it says, unquestioningly, unfailingly?
That's a powerful and maybe uncomfortable challenge. Then there's the source's critique of education. This one really pushes back hard against the common assumption that, getting a degree automatically means you're educated.
Big difference, it argues.
Yeah. It starkly contrasts the idea of valuing education with the reality it sees, describing society as being absolutely starved for knowledge, even while we put this limitless premium on formal education and degrees. It talks about empty degrees like candy being handed out, often at a steep, suffocating cost, mentioning the huge debt, sometimes students' genuine lack of interest, and even a complete disregard for actual learning.
Which is quite an indictment.
Yeah.
The source then paints a very different picture of what education should ideally provide. It's not just job training.
No.
It's about context, history, perspective, maybe profound self-understanding, developing the ability to question everything objectively, and crucially, gaining the power to truly choose the life you want.
Rather than the one prescribed.
Exactly. Rather than feeling pushed into the one chosen for you by societal expectations or these external pressures.
And to really drive this point home about formal education not being the only path, maybe not even the primary path to deep understanding or making a big impact, the source lists this whole host of game-changing, culture-shifting, brilliant-minded individuals
So quite a list.
who, it points out, were not academics. Thinkers like Hobbes, Plato, Spinoza, Hume, Locke, Nietzsche, but also figures like Steve Jobs, Anna Wintour, Rene Descartes, Beethoven, Mark Zuckerberg, Abraham Lincoln, Rockefeller, Edison, Walt Disney.
A very diverse group, united by not following the standard academic path in many cases. And the source argues this isn't just a coincidence.
Right.
It suggests that maybe a critical part of their exceptional impact was precisely not being conditioned within a system that tells you only one specific thing is good or the only valid path. Perhaps their idea stayed, unedited by the need for external validation like grades. Maybe they weren't just spending years compiling and rehashing other people's ideas and calling it research.
It really makes you think again about Plato's famous allegory of the cave, doesn't it? Which the source also brings up.
Absolutely, that powerful image.
People chained in a cave, mistaking shadows cast by others, shadows on the wall, for true reality. The source suggests that seeing that light, achieving true understanding or real education, is about recognizing the illusions we perceive. Especially, it warns, the illusions created and held up by other peoples, which are most dangerous when we just accept them unquestioningly, unfailingly, as being good.
And it draws this sharp distinction between what's considered acceptable and what is truly good. According to the source, acceptable often just means staying within the lines someone else has drawn, lines they use to control you, essentially. But true enlightenment, genuine creativity, those culture-shifting ideas, they are, almost by definition, born outside of what is already considered acceptable.
So ultimately, the source circles right back to that core message. Our lives, it argues, are not meant to be measured by other people's gods.
Yeah.
Not by their dollars, their illusions, their business plans, their beauty standards, their declarations of what's right and wrong, or that prescribed list of who we should be.
Which brings us, I guess, to the big picture takeaway.
So yeah, what does this all boil down to for you, the listener? This deep dive into the source material, it really lands a powerful critique, doesn't it?
It does.
How relying so heavily on these external pressures and society's definitions of good and success, it can paradoxically steer us away from finding genuine internal contentment. It kind of keeps us stuck on that spinning wheel the source described.
And it's strongly urging us, I think, to critically question these imposed standards. In pretty much every area: wealth, appearance, our understanding of goodness, even our basic assumptions about what makes for a truly valuable education.
Right. It highlights the pretty significant personal risk involved in just accepting other people's illusions as the unchallengeable reality for our own lives.
Exactly. And it suggests, doesn't it, that the real lasting value, it's probably not found in chasing those external metrics.
No.
It's more about turning inward, about deeply understanding ourselves, questioning everything, and then choosing a life path that's actually built on our own internal desires, our values, our definitions,
Yeah.
rather than just constantly seeking that external validation.
Yeah. And the source kind of wraps up by suggesting that the crucial task ahead involves radically accepting ourselves in a society that feeds on the opposite.
That's a tough one.
It is. Developing the ability to see illusions for what they are and ultimately reinventing things, but not by, destroying the old systems outright.
No, it's more subtle.
Yeah, more by creating a new, more efficient model, one that renders the other obsolete, making the old way irrelevant by building something better, personally.
Which leads to a really interesting final thought.
Okay, so here's something to really chew on as we finish up. What would creating that new, more efficient model actually look like, specifically for your own life? If you were really building it from the ground up, truly based on your own deeply considered definitions of value and meaning, what would it be built on? And just how different might it look from the one that's maybe currently driven by those other people's gods?
That's the real question, isn't it? Something to definitely think about as you move forward from here.